The compliment is not really to me, it's the compliment to the concept and the character. Hello everybody, this is Amitabh Bachchan and I'm privileged to have Nagi Ashwin here, the director of Kalki.
Full privilege.
And it's 8 o'clock in the morning here in Mumbai. And I've just come back at about 3 in the morning after seeing Kalki for the third time. And just cannot explain the wonder and the experience that all my friends, we watched the film again. And so I thought that there are many aspects of the film, Nagi, which a lot of people put questions to. And in my mind also, there is a lot that comes to me when I think about Kalki. Explain not just to me, but to the audience in general, how you thought of. When we spoke to Priyanka and Sapna, they said, after the last film, they waited and asked you what you're going to do next, and you said, I don't know. And almost after a year or so, you went to them and said, I have something. And after that, Priyanka was saying that after hearing it, I couldn't sleep for a couple of days. And then she rang up Sapna and said, we have to start getting to work on this. So, what went through your mind and how did you conceive this?
To be very honest, sir, I thought this story would be probably one of the last films I'll ever make. I thought this would be my retirement film. But
yeah.
And
we won't let you do that.
Yeah. And I had like a smaller story, maybe something that was not as ambitious as this, that I wanted to start off with. And somewhere along the way, like those few months after Mahanati, I was coming across either articles or like some sort of videos about the Chiranjeevis or about some sort of a Mahabharata connect. And I was even seeing some articles where I was seeing that maybe some production houses in Bollywood were starting to think about Mahabharata or Ramayana and all of that at that time. And I had this story, I had a germ of this story already by then. And I was like, okay, so maybe it's time to bring this out of hibernation. And I took it out and I started living with it for a few weeks, and I realized that the energy that it would probably require to bring this to life and to bring it in front of people was something that I probably had now. And I don't think, to be honest, me, Swapna or Priyanka fully knew what we were getting into when we had that first narration.
That's what they also said, they suddenly realized, oh my God, we need to start working on this now if this concept and this dream has to fructify.
Yeah, we started with one concept artist and we thought, we'll conceptualize the main sequences of the film, but as we kept going deeper into that rabbit hole, so to speak, we realized every single thing had to be conceptualized and every single thing had to be built, and we realized it needed an army.
Yeah, you showed me a photograph of Ashwatthama who has aged and is now
fighting Bhairava. Yeah.
Fighting Bhairava. And for someone to have had that kind of a visual in mind, and then to be told about the title, Kalki, and 2898 AD, and I couldn't understand that. So maybe you could explain for the benefit of the audience.
Core of the story was the first scene in a way. So 6,000 years after the death of Krishna.
Which is what comes in the subtitle.
Yeah. So
6,000 years have passed ever since Krishna gave the shrap to
Ashwadhama. Yeah. So 6,000 years after when Krishna is said to have left his body was 3,102 BC, so to speak. So exactly that would lead up to 2898. The story of Ashwadhama happens after the 18 days of the Kurukshetra.
Yeah.
It happens at the very end, like after the victory, after everything. This is probably
18 days of the war for Kurukshetra.
Yeah. After the 18 days of the war, this is the last thing that happens in the Mahabharata, so to speak. The most important confrontation between the Pandavas and the last Kaurava, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I felt that this was the ending of this story, sort of, but it's also the beginning of another story.
Yes.
And it doesn't finish. Like, I feel it's not finished. We just, even in the Mahabharata, for what I have read, it just is like Ashwadama is cursed and he walks into the woods. Like, he leaves Krishna and Bhima and everybody aside and he walks into the woods. We don't know what happened to him. So that's like a starting of a story. Now I wanted to know, like, if this man is cursed and he has been witnessing this entire Kali Yuga, like, that's the most interesting thought process. Like, because he is this ultimate warrior, but he's not interfering in the events of the Kali Yuga because he has a larger purpose. So I felt that it was audacious in a way for me to attempt to think that I'm finishing something that was left in the Mahabharata, but I was like, nobody's done it yet, so let's give it a shot.
Yes. But why did you think like this, that I want to know what happened after that? Because in a sense, the Mahabharata ended at the end of the war after 18 days. Krishna gives disgust to Ashwatthama, end of matter.
Yeah.
But you said you thought, okay, what happened after that?
I had really loved this dialogue in that first scene, sir. What we did, like, after Ashwadama says, kill me now, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And then Krishna says, no, death is not a punishment. And then we have a wide shot of this battlefield with hundreds and thousands of people who are dead.
Yes.
And that, for me, even when I was writing it, that just felt like it had a deeper meaning. It feels like, Mahabharata has killed millions of people, but Krishna right now is standing there and saying, death is not your punishment, having to live is your punishment. That just meant, like, maybe there is a whole karmic level to this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for Ashwadama also, I felt that anger, like, though he was very cruel in that particular moment, that anger was justified because he just felt that his father was killed very unjustly. And his father was a great warrior and he was killed in the most unjust way. So his anger was justified in his own way. So now his redemption is also very justified. But we never know if that redemption ever comes, because it's not like Ashwadama is always been evil or something like that. He's actually a very noble warrior. He's meant to be an avatar of Shiva. People say, like, Drona prayed to Shiva to get a rupam of Shiva as his child, and that's how Ashwadama was born. There's a beautiful, beautiful couple of pages in the Mahabharata that shows before Ashwadama enters the Pandava camp to massacre the rest of the Pandava army, he sort of, Krishna had put out a barrier. He had put out, like, his magic in a way. He's put, like, the biggest celestial guardians around the camp, and he went back to the kingdom, and Ashwa came and he realized he can't cross those celestial guardians, and for that one time he became like a Rudra Roop, like he became Shiva. He entered one pyre and he came out like Shiva, and there's Kripacharya watching this and he became so scared, like he actually ran away from that scene because Ashwadama was so terrible and so magnificent. So that character always intrigued me. Like, you can't have an avatar of Shiva who is the greatest, is the son of the greatest warrior, and not know how his story ended.
So that was the point of evolution of the idea and thought of how to continue with this.
Yeah. And he wasn't also, like, the most popular Mahabharata character, because from what we've usually exposed to in serials or books or anything, we know about the main ones. We rarely know much about Ashwadama, but I feel he was multiple times capable of destroying the Pandava army if not for Krishna. Like, there were astras that only he could use and only Krishna knew how to stop them.
After 6,000 years.
Yeah.
You hear the words of Krishna saying, that when there is no water in the Ganges. And these were all very symbolic but very pertinent little things that kept coming up. How did you conceive that the futuristic world 6,000 years from now is going to be looking like this?
There were a lot of things that we try to extrapolate, sir. Like, for example, there is massive drought now. There is clean air is already such a problem in so many places in China or even Delhi, for that matter. That buying air is going to become a common thing. It's actually become a common thing already. And the fact that physical currency is not going to exist has already happened. So a lot of things that when we started writing we thought were very futuristic have already happened by the time the film released. And we had to just try to understand that if there is no water and the biggest problem is fertility, I feel, like of man and of the soil. Like those are the two biggest things that will change the world. If human beings suddenly become infertile to a certain level, we just have barely 100 years before we go extinct, in a way. And if the soil stops being kind to us and it becomes dead in a way, then how much synthetic food are you going to develop, and how will that society be that lives only on synthetic food? So those are the two big things we tried to explore, though we didn't have time to really get into the details of it, but that was the thought process.
During the portion when they were designing all this, were there any questions that ever arose in your mind?
Multiple, sir. There were because like almost everything, because when you're trying to design a whole world with an ecosystem, with an economy, with all of that, there'll be so many contradictions. Like even just the architecture of things, there'll be like, what are your vehicles running on? Like if it's running on this, then why don't these people have access to it? And what access does the complex have? So suddenly we're designing a whole world, right from the economy to its power systems to grid to like what do people do? How are they making money? And is there a welfare system in this world? Like there's so much discussion, and after I think 5-6 days of brainstorming, we usually just stop and say, enough, let's get back to the story.
I was talking to some people about Shambhala and what it was, and that is something that they said, that this Shambhala is something that is under the earth. It's there in the Buddhist thought process. I personally felt that there is a scene when Mariam comes forward before she sings that song, to that circular
that
design,
mandala,
which I don't know whether I'm correct in saying that, but it's a very Buddhist. So is that what went through your mind?
It was, sir. I think the idea of Shambhala is something that is very similar to our culture and Buddhist culture, even Persian culture. They have different names for it. And I felt that it's very interesting that all of them have names somewhat similar also. Somebody calls it Shangri-La, somebody calls it Shambhala, and all of them say that it's a place where people are going to sort of retreat to in the Kali Yuga, when adharma becomes so much more outside, and that's where the avatar will come, the savior will come, so to speak. So I felt it's very interesting that so many cultures have the same idea. And the idea of the symbols in Shambhala was like a mix between the chakras that we have, the Sri chakra and all of that, combined with the mandalas that Tibetans have, which are so similar. So that was that. We just wanted to find, I think in the production design discussions that we were having, we were always trying to see like how culture would be amalgamated in 6,000 years. It wouldn't be like sharp lines between cultures and traditions. Things would probably get merged a bit.
But it's, it amazes me how one person's brain could have designed and thought of all these things.
I couldn't have, sir. There was a production designer, Nitin Zihani. We had multiple meetings. We have a concept design team which is really good. They're from Jaipur, fully Indian, like Immortal Collective. We had an in-house storyboard artist, Venu. I mean, for a movie like this, I would say that we probably required a bigger team, but the team that we had was fully on board, and everyone was constantly ideating. I mean, I definitely had to okay the final aesthetic, and I would guide them and direct them the way it had to go. But if not for the concept designers and Nitin's brain also, this wouldn't have come out the way it has.
Kamal, that day when we had a general,
Yeah,
when we were talking to the rest of the guys, he said something very nice.
yeah,
He said, a lot of the filmmakers come to me and they describe the story, and they give me very efficiently made
concept arts.
storyboards.
Yeah.
But the point is that his opinion was that how does this storyboard actually get into practice, and what is the reality of it? It's all right to make some drawings and come, but he said that when I saw this and when I heard Nagi, I thought, gosh, it's going to be another one of those storyboard things. But then Nagi showed me some visuals which he had shot, and I believed, and just went ahead with it. What was the idea of the complex?
The idea of the complex was, it was like everything is there. It's beautiful. It feels like heaven. There's water. It feels like, animals are frolicking happily, and it's clean air and all of that. But there's something that feels unnatural about it as well. There's something that doesn't feel real, and it doesn't feel it belongs there. So it was that aspiration of man. I feel that when you go to the complex in the film, there is this idea that you need 1 million units to enter the complex in this world.
That idea was like a creative idea of yours?
Yeah, it was a creative idea. It was something to give a goal to Prabhas's character, and everybody in that world they basically were working around that goal. They wanted to make 1 million units to get into the complex. But my idea was that you can't make 1 million units by being straightforward. The complex wants you to backstab each other. The complex wants you to fight amongst each other to make that 1 million units, and they're just going to be at peace because these people are never going to unite.
That is what is happening in Kali Yuga,
Yeah.
This whole backstabbing and everything, everyone wants to grab and go on to the top,
Correct.
That famous story about all of us, we're all like cockroaches and everyone wants to go,
Go up,
and reach the top of the lid of the bottle where they're in. So, you are catering to an audience, and there are many portions which I felt, as somebody who's been in the film industry, could understand that, okay, we are playing to the gallery.
Yeah.
This is Prabhas.
For sure.
This is a Telugu film. And Prabhas is Telugu. And you have to understand that he's massive, and he's godlike there. So many elements which a lot of people felt in the first half, because of its length and so on and so forth. At times they were not able to understand, or say, come on, let's get on with the story. But the fact is that it's like an intro to the hero of the film, but not just the hero of the film,
but also
the hero for the Telugu-speaking nation. And that is something that, people perhaps overlook, but we have to give it to them. At the same time, giving out to the audience, I've never lost a fight and I never will. Which are actually Krishna's words. And you've given it to Prabhas, to Bhairav. True. But the point is that for the common language that the Telugu nation that is gaga over Prabhas, it has an alternate meaning as well.
Also,
And that is, those are the claptraps. For, I just felt it was a wonderful amalgamation of playing to the gallery, yet not entirely submitting yourself to them.
It was a tricky line, sir, for sure.
That's a very thin line. I mean, I would love to go and sit in a theatre in Hyderabad and sit with this Telugu-speaking audience when they're seeing this, because they must be going wild when they see Prabhas saying this, and all the comic interludes that he has, and they had wonderful little snippets, that she comes out with, which are valid for the film, yet extremely valid for the common man. I mean, how did you think of that?
Like you're saying, it's a very thin line, sir. Like, there were a few things in his intro, for example. Like, I think a new audience from Paris wouldn't make anything of it. Because there's a hologram that is glitching. it says possible rebel, 5-star bounty.
Yeah.
And then it just glitches just for a moment right next to Prabhas and says rebel star for like an instant. And that's a claptrap for sure.
Yes, yes.
And but for anybody on the outside, it doesn't make any difference. It was hard to design something like that. And there was something also where Bujji says, even I have some fans, and Bujji says, yeah, you have a rebel fan.
Yeah.
and again, for another audience, it doesn't make any difference because he was a rebel. We established
right.
that.
No, that's what I felt. It was a brilliant amalgamation of playing to the gallery playing to the audience
in Hyderabad,
yet not moving away
Yeah.
from the concept of the film.
Yeah.
The concept of fertility,
Yeah.
was that a story imagination, or is there some kind of a link?
It was a bit of a story imagination, sir. It felt like in the Kali Yuga, like what is the last thing that can be taken away from us is the gift of life. People's morality and this and that and everything. And the last thing that would die is the actual gift of life, like whether it is food or whether it is the chance that we procreate and make and continue our species. So just the fact that, that there was a dialogue which said that I will be born in the last womb of the Kali Yuga. So that was there in one of the earlier drafts, and it felt like that was the most dramatic way to introduce our savior.
Yeah. And a lot of questions being asked is, how do you manage to perform when you don't have the props around you? Yeah.
We really tried in this film to build as much as we could, sir. Like whether it was the off sector where there was desert and the truck and everything, or Shambhala, the bridge. We tried our best to give as much, but yeah, there were definitely sequences where it was just a blue screen. And
Yeah. We all know that, Indian cinema works on poetic justice.
yeah.
And I keep quoting this from my father, who used to watch a film during his last days every evening, and I was asked to ask him, what is there in watching a film? So he used to say that, I get to see poetic justice in 3 hours. So during the length of the film, at the end of the film, there's poetic justice. To bring that kind of poetic justice
Yeah.
in Kalki, in the Mahabharata, is it going to be factual? Is it not? I mean, this we will discover in part 2. But did it ever cross your mind that, there has to be this aspect of poetic justice in the film?
Definitely, sir. I think so. I think Ashwadhama's character itself is that idea of poetic justice. The way his character starts and the way it needs to finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are many little things which, which were done and shown in the film,
Yeah.
but its essence was actually realized by the audience.
Yeah.
It's like Sumati's Agni Pariksha in a sense.
Yeah.
Which was so beautifully done.
Yeah.
And we talk about Agni Pariksha, but we never visualized that it could be like this.
Yeah.
And you have the carrier of the next avatar go through this Agni Pariksha, which you show Sumati walking through this, ball of fire, and nothing happens to her.
Yeah.
Whereas when the fighters go through it, it just burn up.
Yeah.
So, what was the thinking behind that?
That is definitely one of my favorite sequences in the film, because it also parallelly brings in all the 3 characters. Like it brings in
It's a
Ashw's,
kind of a chastising of Sumati in a sense.
Yeah, in a way. And Ashwa realizes at the same time, Bhairava at the same time. And for me personally, it was the reference of the Krishna and Vasudeva walking through the river in the Dwapar Yuga, like as the river parts for them. It felt like in the Dwapar Yuga, the water element parted for God to give him safe passage. And for me here, it felt that the fire element parted for God to give him safe passage.
Yeah.
So that was my thought process.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many challenges, even from the point of view of, say, the DOP or the cameraman and everything.
Yeah.
You have an 8-foot giant,
Yeah.
and you have the rest of the cast here.
Yeah.
And there were so many times when we took hours, because how do you light up a place where you're going to see both the characters together.
Correct.
So my lighting is going to be different.
Yeah.
And my whole atmosphere is going to be different. My concept of looking down to talking everyone,
And everyone's
looking up to talk to me, and how we actually managed to do that.
Yeah.
There were times when I was having this little stick poking out from behind me and saying, my face is not here, it's somewhere up there. And it was quite amusing, but how wonderfully it all sort of...
It all came together. Like how many times we had to do each shot 3 times or 4 times.
Yes.
Yeah. Even when I was writing, I always thought Kalki was 2 watches. Like it was a repeat watch. Like the first time you watch the film, you watch the film. And the second time you watch it with the perspective of having seen it again. So you see so many things in a new perspective almost.
Yes.
In a way, it's almost a new film the second watch.
Yeah.
So I always felt it was a 2-watch movie at the least, and it's great because I think we went for the evening show, like all of us, to see it, and on the first day, and by the evening show there were people who already knew the dialogue, so they were already watching it the second time.
Yeah, I finished seeing it for the 3rd time last night. I'd really like you to just kind of summarize the whole experience before we end up talking.
Yeah.
Because we could just carry on,
For a long time, yes, sir. I think for me, it was just, it was a dream definitely to put together this world and all of the influences and the stories that I've loved, and putting it together in a world in a coherent and an understandable and enjoyable way. And to see now today that dream has come true and people are actually agreeing to watch such a film and love such a film and accept it. It's not just, I think, just for us as a team that's been working on it for 3 years, and the actors that have put in so much time to do it. It's not just a win for us, I feel. I feel it's a win for the industry in a way, because like producers, actors, directors, writers now have a validation that they can think differently. Now they have a validation that they can greenlight projects which probably wouldn't have, because now there's a kalki. Now there's a kalki, a producer will listen to a story that is a mytho or a fantasy or something, and an actor will be okay to greenlight a script. So I think we have moved forward in the right direction, and I'm very glad that Kalki was able to do something to have that change happen. I just wanted to, I mean, we won't get a chance as often, so I just wanted to ask what in the scenes that you've done, like what were your favorite scenes in the film?
It's very difficult to pick one particular scene, Nagi. And I'm not just saying it because I'm a member of the cast and crew and it's our film, but quite honestly, it's very difficult. Really, the purpose of talking to you, Nagi, was that. That it's, yes, it is a film. Yes, it is make-believe. But it's make-believe. It's the belief that we want you to go and see, because it's been made with belief. And that belief is what is the strongest point that I feel in the film. And each time I see it, it's that belief. I hope that, the audiences will go and see this film with the kind of interpretation that Nagi, the director, had, and his vision, and the way he has explained the many aspects of the story. It's a film that anybody will identify with, because it's, good over evil, and all our films are like that. But to give it the depth and bring that mythological history, culture into the open and prove it, that is what was challenging for Nagi, and that is what I find he has been able to find victory in that challenge. Now we wait anxiously for part 2. How is it all going to end? And so we look in great anticipation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nagi. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Sir, I know you don't like or appreciate this, but this is one of the few chances we have to thank you for all your patience.
You know,
And the whole country, sir, like whoever I speak to,
Yeah.
I know you've heard this already so many times, but it's just such a pleasure to see you in that avatar, in that role.
Yeah.
And so many people, I did a bunch of interviews yesterday and everybody just said, thank you for giving us this Amitabh Bachchan.
It's
a
a huge
fan
fallacy,
thing.
actually. I don't believe
I know
it.
you don't like any of
No,
it,
it's,
sir.
it's not a case of liking. I just feel that the compliment is not really to me, it's the compliment to the concept and the character. And
Also.
that speaks volumes about the film. It's not a personal, okay, I like this star,
Yeah.
and he was good and he acted very well and so on and so forth. So
Yes, sir.
when they compliment a Prabhas or a Deepika and anyone else and Kamal, you're actually complimenting the concept of the director, Nagi, who was able to conceive and put together this story. It's all very well to go to an audience that's coming out of a theatre and say, "Kaisi lagi film bhaiya?" So they said, "That's about the film bhaiya." Yeah, उन्हें समझ में नहीं आया, ये नहीं हुआ. It's not that. I think that we need to catch some people the youngsters, and say, let's sit down and have a chat. And what did you actually see? What did you think of? What was going through your mind when you were watching all this? It would make a very interesting subject. And I'm going to catch Abhishek and
Please do, sir. That would be
Navya,
great.
my granddaughter, and have a chat with them, much like we've had here, and ask them some very pertinent questions. Right. Thank you, Nagi.
That'd be great, sir.
Yeah,
such a
thanks so
pleasure.
much.
Such a pleasure, sir.
Thank you so much. That's the end of our very long, intricate conversation. And I hope that you enjoy the film when you see it. Thank you so much. Namaskar.